Hello, Power fans. I'm Mathonical, joining for round 4 with Bogles. Our opening hand is fantastic, just missing a second land, but that's alright. We're going to go ahead and keep it. We have both of our colors, 2 mana sources, and we're good to go. Opponent starts on Island plus Preordain, so we do have to worry about counter magic being next turn. Like if they're on any kind of Delver, we may have to worry about Spellstarter sprites. So even though we would be playing into Daze here, I do want to get this Utopia Sprawl down now and hope it resolves. We can deal with our Scout and Bogle being countered easier. Thankfully, there was no Daze there. We did get to resolve our Utopia Sprawl, and it turns out our opponent is on Izzet Blitz. That does mean that they could have Dazes, but thankfully there's none just yet. Bogle is what we're going to play first, and then I'm playing Cartouche of Solidarity over the Ethereal Armor because it's going to generate a white creature. The best way Izzet Blitz has of winning the game is to make one of their creatures unblockable. The other best way is to give themselves double strike, and first strike is exactly what we want to combat that. Since they've now played a second creature, and since we would like to start getting in some damage, I'm going to take the very rare opportunity for us to suit up this warrior. It has vigilance for us to get in damage and keep it back on defense. We have another Ethereal Armor to give it first strike, and both of our creatures on first strike blocking theirs means it makes it pretty difficult for them to kind of get in for the win, since the second strike damage would never happen. So we're going to suit this up. The other reason why this is pretty safe, and I don't mind doing it in this matchup, is their removal is damage based. It's already a 6/6, so they would need 2 lightning bolts to deal with it, and even then it does have totem armor. So I think we're in a pretty good spot here. Our opponent is going to continue to set up for next turn by the looks of it, and indeed that's the case. They look with their Augur of Bolas and unfortunately don't find anything. That's good for us, and we did find a land. That's perfect. We now get to get the Armadillo Cloak online and swing in for some trample lifelink, and that's going to incentivize our opponent to go for the win this turn. So let's see what they do. Gush, yep, they're on a pretty good roll so far, and Gitaxian Probe for some free spells. They're actually going to go for casting a Daze with some of their mana. I'm assuming they're going to let it counter the Gitaxian Probe. They don't really care about what's in our hand, and they just want the additional pumps at this point. We know that they have islands in hand, so if they go island into Temur Battle Rage plus Mutagenic Growth, I think we may lose here. We're going to make the blocks that make sense. That way our first strike damage would destroy their creatures. We'd gain some life. So yeah, if they have Mutagenic Growth on the Kiln Fiend plus Temur Battle Rage, we still do lose here, because that's going to pump it up to 3, 6, 7, 8. It's going to be a 21, 42 damage. We're only going to gain 9, so that would be lethal. But then our opponent makes the questionable play of dazing their Mutagenic Growth. I'm assuming they think they need the extra pump, and I think they end up forgetting that the Mutagenic Growth pumping its toughness is actually very relevant here. Our Bogle would not be able to kill their Kiln Fiend without the, yeah, that's a little bit of a punt on our opponent's part, but thankfully that's the exact kind of thing we needed to be able to get through this game, because now the second strike damage isn't going to happen. Normally that would do additional damage to guarantee the win, but in this case the trade happens before the second strike damage, so we end up getting the win. Just a very rare interaction that happened there. So we do end up getting game 1, and we can jump over to game number 2. We do have some good sideboard cards for this one as well, namely these Crimson Acolytes. It may not look it on the surface, but they say you can target any creature with its ability. Target creature gets protection from red. So in this case, we can actually target their creatures to protect their creatures from getting Temur Battle Raged, which makes it a lot easier for us to win the game. As well, we also get to bring in a Cartouche of Strength, which will help us destroy their creatures, as well as a Dispel and a Hydroblast. Creatures that we don't need. We can take out the Ledgewalkers, even though they can like kind of get past all their creatures. The Crimson Acolytes will do a very similar role, and we don't want to have like an overload of creatures. Spider Umbra, we can safely get rid of that. Even though there could be Electrickery coming along, we don't need to block any flyers. We didn't see any Delvers that match. And we can also take out a Rancor. If we end up seeing Delvers or Electrickeries in some number, we may want to take out more Rancors and bring the Spider Umbras back in. But for now, we'll go like that. And of course, taking out the Relic in any match where we don't need it. So let's take a look at our opening hand. Well, this hand does depend on getting a second land, but if we do, having this Crimson Acolyte looks pretty darn good to me. So I am going to go ahead and keep this one. A little on the risky side, of course, but we're going to have 3 draws to draw a land. I'm going to start off in the Abundant Growth, just because if we draw any land, the Acolyte would be a very nice follow-up, and sure enough, we did get there. We're now going to be able to block this Kiln Fiend all day. Don't have to worry about a thing. Well, of course, our opponent could just trample over if they had some nut draw with Gitaxian Probes and Mutagenic Growths, but thankfully our opponent doesn't look to have the max combo right off the start. I did debate holding up the 1 white to protect their creature from Team or Battle Rage, but we do need to get something down at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and suit up this Gladecover Scout. This does give us protection against them going for it, at least for a turn, unless they have the Mutagenic Growth again. And the forest is now exactly where we want to be. Since they've got 2 Kiln Fiends up now, we do need to make sure we're holding up this white. We need to be able to protect our creatures, protect their creatures. We've got good blocks at the moment, so we're in a decent spot. Of course, the more time we give our opponent, the more likely it is for them to find some sort of answer to what we're doing. And here, we want to make sure we're holding up this white kind of at all times if we can. And so we're going to set up this Utopia Sprawl on this land. We don't need the mana right away, so we're just going to use it for itself. And we'll keep holding this white mana available. Alright, they got a Cyclops now, so they are getting quite a few creatures. Standard Bearer is very nice. We're going to play that, holding up a white. They didn't have any red there, so they couldn't go for like an Electrickery on the end of their turn, so we didn't have to do the protection right away. So now they can't even target their own creatures without targeting the Standard Bearer first. We've got the Crimson Acolyte, we can block just all day, every day, and give our creatures protection. So at this point, we're going to start wanting to hold up double white until we find some additional lands. Cartouche of Strength is very nice. It'll allow us to kill something at some point. But once again, we're not in any rush. I think we set ourselves up pretty nicely here. And our opponent does seem to agree since they're not going for any sort of win at the moment. Yep, they're going to continue digging. They have a Mutagenic Growth and a Gataxian Probe. I'm assuming they're holding a Gataxian Probe for some combo turn. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and kill one of their creatures just to make it a little easier on us. And then we're going to set up the Ethereal Armor on the Standard Bearer because I don't think they're going to be able to remove it very easily. And this way, we don't have to protect it in the event of them casting Electrickery or a Lightning Bolt, since we don't want to tap down our white too often. And here, land is perfect. That means we get to get our Ancestral Mask online. That's going to be very, very big, and our opponent does agree, and they concede. That's the power of Crimson Acolyte. It just completely locked down this game. It was the MVP. Thank you for joining me in round 4, and I'll see you in round 5.